The internet is being used for horrible things. Government inaction and tech companies ignoring the problem have only made it worse. This is America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. You know what? Let's just start this off with an America Uncovered mental health break. Here's a corgi puppy in a box. God, look at that face. I hope you enjoyed that moment because we're about to explore the depths of human degeneracy. And no, I'm not talking about Black Friday shoppers. A joke. Appreciate that because it might be the last time you ever laugh after what I'm about to tell you. You know that delightful Avenue Q song, The Internet is for Porn?
Internet is for porn. The internet is for porn.
Cute and true, only apparently it also includes child pornography. According to this expose in the New York Times, last year, tech companies reported over 45 million online photos and videos of children being sexually abused. That's double the year before. There is a thriving underbelly of the internet that is making insane profits on some of the most despicable things imaginable. Now, in the face of something this horrendous, you might be tempted to dismiss this, or at least downplay it a little. Some people think the problem isn't that big, or that it's exaggerated, that it's really just teenagers sharing inappropriate selfies that then get loose on the internet. But no, these are images and videos of pedophiles raping, torturing, and sometimes killing young children, toddlers, and even infants. Now, I'll spare you the gory details, but the New York Times gives the example of how videos found on the computer of an Ohio man were described by investigators as among the most gruesome and violent images of child pornography. And he had over 3 million photos. That guy helped run a site on the dark web called The Love Zone. It had nearly 30,000 members. A private section of the forum was available only to members who shared imagery of children they abused themselves. They were known as producers. In 2017, Australian police shut down an enormous dark web pedophile forum called Child's Play. It had over 1 million user accounts. Or take the case of the Australian man sentenced last year. He had become a cyber child porn kingpin in the Philippines. Police say Scully is accused of the most shocking cases of child murder, torture, and abuse they have ever seen in the Philippines. And get this, he was selling videos of his deeds for up to $10,000 each. You'd have to be pretty rich to drop 10 grand on a single video. These sites and forums not only share the stuff, they teach other pedophiles how to carry out their own crimes, how to record them, and how to share them anonymously. And it's the anonymity that encourages members to post images of younger and younger children being abused in more and more extreme and violent ways. Many of the victims are children from other parts of the world, often poor countries where it's easy for children to fall through the cracks. But the problem is firmly rooted in the United States, too, in Silicon Valley, where big tech has a big role to play. At this point, you might be asking yourself,
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Well, they are. In 2008, Congress passed the Protect Our Children Act. But that law was passed 11 years ago. And it seems like the problem has only gotten worse since then. Well, there's a reason for that. The act sets aside $60 million each year to fund state and local law enforcement efforts. But Congress usually only approves about half of that. And some experts say even the whole $60 million wouldn't be enough to deal with the problem anymore. For example, a lot of the money goes to constantly training new agents to work on this. As you can imagine, the turnover rate is pretty high. On top of that, the Justice Department has produced just 2 of 6 required reports that are meant to compile data about internet crimes against children and set goals to eliminate them. In 2011, the Government Accountability Office issued this report. It found that no steps had been taken to research which online offenders posed the highest risk, and the Justice Department failed to issue a progress report to Congress. Those two things were supposed to be requirements of the 2008 law. Then there's the problem of big tech. These images and videos of child torture and abuse aren't just circulating on the dark web. Pedophiles are using the same apps we use every day: Facebook, Tumblr, Snapchat, Dropbox, and Microsoft's Bing search engine. The surge in criminal activity on the dark web accounted for only a fraction of the 18.4 million reports of abuse last year. That number originates almost entirely with tech companies based in the United States. In 2018, a video of a 6-year-old child being abused went viral on Facebook Messenger. In fact, Facebook Messenger was responsible for nearly 2/3 of reports in 2018. Some tech companies are notoriously slow or unwilling to work with authorities. They're required by law to report images of child abuse when they find them, but they're not required to actively look for them. According to the New York Times, Bing was said to regularly submit reports that lacked essential information, making investigations difficult, if not impossible. Snapchat is designed so content gets deleted after viewing, and generally gets removed from their servers within 30 days. According to law enforcement, when requests are made to the company, Snap often replies that it has no additional information. Then there's Tumblr. In one case, Tumblr alerted a person who had uploaded explicit images that the account had been referred to the authorities. The tip allowed the man to destroy evidence. According to a former employee, that practice was common for years. Making the situation worse is the close relationship tech companies have with NGOs that are supposed to be independent watchdogs. Take the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It was founded in 1984 after a highly publicized kidnapping and murder of a 6-year-old boy. But the Times found that there may now be questionable ties between this NGO and some of the biggest tech companies. For example, the center receives both money and in-kind donations from tech companies, while employees of the same companies are sometimes members of its board. Google alone has donated nearly $4 million in the past decade. So you gotta wonder, what kind of sicko enjoys torturing and raping children and making videos of it for other sickos to enjoy? For a long time, there was a notion that most people who are attracted to children never act on those desires. They're called non-offending pedophiles. Some even call themselves virtuous pedophiles. No, I kid you not, that's what they're being called. In fact, according to websites like The Virtuous Pedophile, Before You Act, and The Prevention Project, you shouldn't even call them pedophiles. That's offensive. You should refer to them as MAPs, or minor attracted persons. Sites like these say they want understanding and acceptance of MAPs so they can seek treatment to deal with their sexual orientation. But some people fear sites like these operate merely under the guise of helping pedophiles remain celibate, but instead enable them to trade tips and tricks on how to groom children for sexual purposes. Now, I mentioned that these websites refer to pedophilia as a sexual orientation. That's the same language used by the LGBT community. And if you find that offensive, well, guess what? That's what pedophiles are using now. Taking this familiar term and applying it to pedophilia actually lends legitimacy to pedophilia. And surprisingly, academia seems to be on board. The American Psychiatric Association calls pedophilia a sexual orientation, not a disorder, as long as the person doesn't feel any guilt, shame, or anxiety about it. Well, as long as they don't feel any shame about it. And there are researchers that agree. Craig Harper, a psychology lecturer at Nottingham Trent University, is one. In fact, he recommends making stigmatizing pedophilia a form of hate speech, since it is a sexual orientation and should be legally protected. And if that's not shocking enough for you, according to The Telegraph, in a conference at Cambridge University, one professor said most men are pedophiles and that's normal. I think that professor might not know what the word normal means. The problem is, with the surge in images and videos of horrific child abuse flooding the internet, some experts are re-examining long-held beliefs, including one that the overwhelming majority of those with pedophilic attraction never go on to commit physical abuse. More recent studies have found that those caught viewing these kinds of horrific images also commit them. One researcher told The Times, "We shouldn't assume that viewing online images leads to abuse of a child victim in person. In my clinical experience, it's the other way around. Most of these men have already committed hands-on offenses." These online forums seem to drive pedophiles to become more extreme. They learn how to evade law enforcement. They become more confident, and they begin to use cognitive distortions to overcome their moral inhibitions. But what scares me the most about this story is the sheer scope of the problem. Again, one of these forums had over 1 million registered users, and a portion of people were paying tens of thousands of dollars to watch this stuff. Who are they? And the problem isn't limited to people disguising themselves on the dark web. Take Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts. Epstein allegedly ran an international underage sex trafficking ring for the rich and powerful. Obviously, that was before his death in prison. That was definitely a suicide. His exploitation and sexual abuse of vulnerable young girls was covered up by rich and powerful people for years. Then there was the whole NXIVM sex cult scandal. That involved Smallville actress Allison Mack and the heiress to the Seagram liquor fortune Claire Bronfman. The head of NXIVM was arrested on charges including sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, child exploitation, and child pornography. He also kept women locked in a dungeon and branded them with his initials. Honestly, what makes someone wake up in the morning and think to themselves, "Boy, you know what I could go for? Some rape and torture. Yeah, that'll hit the spot." I'm fine with coffee. And actually, I feel a little guilty about even that. All of this sounds like a conspiracy, but sometimes conspiracies are true. So right now, you might be thinking about digging a hole, sticking your head in it, and never coming out again. I don't blame you. There is another option, though. Simply do a search for Find My Representative and find your representative, and let them know that this is an issue you care about. You can ask for better funding for the Protect Our Children Act. Demand that tech companies do more. If Ashton Kutcher can help start an NGO to tackle this problem, you can do something too. You can even share this episode with your friends and family to let them know what's going on. YouTube most likely will flag this video, and I wouldn't be surprised if they age restricted it, which means fewer people will see it. Thanks for watching, if anyone is still watching. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. This is America Uncovered.